Hello again, everyone. Thanks for watching and for these great questions. We will answer as many as we can today, and any questions we don't have time for, we'll have an EPI support team member contact you directly for an answer. All right, let's take a look at our first question. Michael asks, what are the ways that I can start gaining students' respect on the first day of class? What do you think, Kristina?
All right, Michael, thank you for your question. So we think that gaining students' respect on the first day of class is very critical, and I'm so glad that you asked. Thinking back to what you have just watched, you can make sure to build that rapport, use that 80-20 rule, and make sure that you're understanding who your students are as individuals, and also making sure that you are, clearly defining your rules, your procedures, and your expectations on the very first day, and you are continuing to be consistent with those. So every time you see something that's not aligned to your procedures, you have to note that, and you have to make sure to go about changing that. All right? Okay, next question. Adriana asks, you talked about how important modeling behavior is, and I feel like I messed up. I raised my voice at my students yesterday when they wouldn't stop talking. How do I regain their trust?
Thank you, Adriana. We're all human as teachers. Sometimes we make mistakes. It's great that you realize that you did make one, and now, like you're asking for, how to go about fixing this mistake. So the first thing that I would suggest is go to your class, stand in front of them, and say, yesterday I raised my voice at you. In my country, that's entirely appropriate. That's what we do to gain attention. I realize now that that's not what we do in this country. So I'm going to show you what I want you to do from now on when I want you to be silent, okay? And then give them, your cue, how you want to silence the classroom or get their attention. So if you want to use, I'll clap once, you clap twice. But whatever method that you want to use to regain their attention and get them to stop talking, teach them that, and then continue to teach it as a procedure as the day goes on until they get used to it, all right? So once again, just be honest with them and then show them how you want them to be quiet in the future, what you want them to do. All right, thank you very much. Next question comes in from Lucille. Lucille says, I have a parent that calls me every day to make sure her student is getting personalized attention. I feel overwhelmed. I don't want to have a negative relationship with the parent, but they won't stop calling. Is it okay to set boundaries?
Lucille, thank you for your question. It is absolutely okay to set boundaries. I know that as a teacher, I myself would never want to have a negative relationship with a parent, and I know that you do not either. But of course, you have to make sure that you are attending to all of your class and getting done all the things that you feel like is possible. So if you have a parent that you think is taking a lot of time, first I suggest that you figure out what exactly that parent is calling and asking about. Are they questions that could be found elsewhere and that you can redirect them to something else? If not, I encourage you to take the time to think about those questions and see if you can develop some kind of procedural things in order to get out information to your parents to where they won't be asking you so many questions. If you have that parent, keep in mind that you never want to be defensive. So unless they are, saying that you're actually doing something wrong, likely they just really want to help their kid. They really want to help their child be the best that they can be. So think about why they're asking those questions. Try to make a boundary by setting time frames that you can talk to them, say maybe every 2 weeks or something. You can have a contact with them, and if something happens to where you feel like you need to contact them sooner, you will do so. So establish those kinds of communications with your parents to where you don't feel overwhelmed when they're contacting you too often. All right. Our next question comes from Shakira. All right. I've been doing icebreaker activities, but one of my students still doesn't talk to any of the others. How do I reach the student and promote more student-to-student relationships?
Thank you for your question, Shakira. Think about how you're doing your icebreaker activities. Are you having your students share out to the group? As a whole, this may make some students uncomfortable. Maybe they're too shy and feel that spotlight being put on them. So if that is what you're doing, you can consider breaking them down. into smaller groups or even pairs, and maybe at that time that student would feel more comfortable only speaking to a couple other students or one other student. If this you feel like is not the case and you're still not having this student talk, if they're still having trouble, hopefully you've been having them write down their answers for these icebreaker activities where you can learn a little bit about the student. So find a topic that your student is really passionate about. Work that into your curriculum or your icebreaker activity and make it such a tempting topic to the student that they'll want to speak about it, something that they're extremely passionate about, okay? And once you do that, I think you're going to start seeing that student participate within the class when it's something that they're really interested in. Thank you. The next question comes in from Ernestine, who says, I saw in the chapter something about power, affiliation, and achievement, but I don't think I really understand them. Can you explain?
All right, Ernestine, thank you for your question. Power, affiliation, and achievement are key factors in motivating your students, all right? So you can find additional information about that in Chapter 3, but coming to think about it, power is making sure that your students feel like they are in control and they do have choice in your class. Affiliation is to make sure that your students are having those really strong connections with the other students in your class and making sure that they are building those in order to feel confident and want to, continue to work in your class. And with achievement is to making sure that your students feel accomplished and to know that they have, achieved something and that you are, progressively monitoring with that and making sure that you are, as the teacher, showing your students that, they are on the right track, they are having goal setting, and they are getting there. All right. Clinton asks, my students turned in an assignment where they wrote about their interests, but I'm having difficulty finding time to speak with them all individually. What can I do to make the time?
Thank you, Clinton. I'm going to tell you something you can do that will take 0% of your instructional time, and that is before class starts, stand outside of your room and speak to the students as they enter. Maybe you won't be able to have, deep conversation with every single one of them, but you'll at least be able to greet them, at least be able to, ask them about their weekend or some of their interests that you've gathered from these icebreaker assignments. And that's something that you can do every single day. So, if there's a couple you missed while you're talking to other students, just make sure that you speak to them the next day. As far as doing it during that actual class time, you should always be making students aware of their performance in your class, how they're doing, if they're missing any work, these things. So as you work this in on a day-by-day basis, pull 2 or 3 students a day, come up, talk to them a little bit about their work in class, and then you can also talk to them a little bit about their interests during this time. So, just make the time to build this in, and eventually you will get to speak to all those students individually. Thank you. The next question comes in from Samir. I started classes this week. My students talk during class and get up when they hear the bell for the next class, but I'm still speaking. Why do they do that?
All right, Samir, that is a good question. So in our culture, it is your responsibility as the teacher to make sure that your students are clear on the procedures for your class. So likely if they are doing that, that is because there is not a clear procedure for when to get up for the next class. As well as when they are talking during class, you have to make sure to establish a clear procedure when students are allowed to talk and who they are allowed to talk to and what they are allowed to talk about. Oftentimes we do not want, as teachers, silent rooms are not always the best rooms, right? But productive talking is what we really want. All right. Next question comes from Latoya. Latoya said, thank you for your tips on building rapport with students, but what about coworkers?
Those coworker relationships are so important.
Very.
They can help you with lessons. They can help you maybe vent a little bit at the end of the day. They can help you, feel better about what you're doing in your job. So it's great that you're thinking about establishing these coworker relationships. The simple answer here is talk to them, smile at them, greet them in the morning. You know, a common greeting in America is, how are you doing? And usually we just expect you to say, I'm good. But you can go into more depth about that. People love talking about their family. You can ask them, you know, what they did the night before and start finding out their interests. So it's very similar to what you're going to be doing with your students, you know, just in a more adult, grown-up type fashion. If you hear that they're teaching something that you're interested in, ask them about it. They're probably passionate about it, especially if it's something good. And vice versa. If you have something that you know is good, be like, hey, I have this. Offer to share some of the material that you have built and kind of build that professional relationship as well. Thank you, LaToya. The next one comes in from Maria. She says, I'm worried about one of my students. They don't have very good relationships with other students. Is there something I can do?
All right, Maria, thank you for your question. So thinking about individual students, you want to figure out kind of the relationship dynamics in the class and why that might be happening. Okay, so I encourage you to kind of watch your class, figure out what kind of conversations and things that that student is attempting to have or not attempting to have. And so from there you can kind of figure out what you can do as the teacher to help kind of build that rapport with the rest for your student with the rest of the class. Along with thinking about those relationships with the other students. If you have a class that has a really tight-knit group of students, for instance, if you have a student that comes in and they are a new student, these are also the same kinds of challenges that you're going to have and you're going to see throughout the year as students come in and out of your classroom when they move. So these are always things that you're going to want to keep in mind, how to kind of assimilate a student into a current group of students or get them back on track when they're having trouble. All right. A viewer asks, the best time to build, I think this is a comment. Okay, the best time to build strong relationships is at the start of the academic year. However, it is never too late to get to that student that has been giving you a bit of a hard time in class. Even if it's in the middle of the year, if you try to seek and get to know more about them, it makes all the difference. That is a great comment. Thank you. All right, we have another viewer asking, do you have any suggestions for icebreakers for kindergartners in the Spanish immersion program? So I will go ahead and take a shot at that question. And as I was an elementary school teacher, and I never taught Spanish immersion, but I can say that I know that a lot of Spanish immersion teachers use a lot of visuals and a lot of color for icebreakers at the beginning of the year. Oftentimes you can bring in things that would interest young children and see what kind of hobbies that they like to do based on what they play on. You can also do some icebreakers where you just set down a small amount of, games and things where they can kind of get to know each other on the interest, and you'll see that for kindergartners they'll kind of develop that natural curiosity to kind of start talking to each other and see where those friendships form. All right.
Another anonymous asks, they say, what tips can you suggest to maintain positive relationship with your students when they push your limits? Well, thank you for that question, Anonymous. In my personal experience, I've found that the students who misbehave the most usually end up liking me the most. And that's just from consistency, I think. Being consistent with them, being fair with them, along with other students, don't treat them any different. But also, like I was saying earlier in our broadcast today, say to yourself, I am going to be this student's favorite teacher, and then work to make that happen. Invest in their interests like we talked about before, but also if you have a little classroom task or something like that you can get them involved in, make them feel a little important, give them some of the power like Kristina was talking about earlier, and then make them an active participant where they're actually doing something for the benefit of you and the class. That'll help to turn that attitude around. It's important to know that just because the student pushes your limits, it's not that they dislike you. They are just doing that. They're trying to find out their boundaries, right? So don't take any of this personal. Try your hardest not to get upset. Certainly do not show you're upset, because sometimes students will feed off of that type of thing. So remain calm. Stay as positive as you can and be consistent. Thank you. The next question is also from another anonymous. They say, what will be the best strategy for cramming the names of my learners if I am teaching 100 learners in total?
All right, that is a great question. So we do have many, many teachers in our program who teach a lot of students at one time throughout the year, and I always suggest to any teacher who's having trouble with learning their students' names to do kind of that names to faces strategy again, and also to try to get in every way you can a picture of your class. Depending on how you are able to, some schools have certain policies about taking pictures and things like that. But I always would make sure that I was allowed to take pictures of my class. And then if I wasn't able to find them in the yearbook or something, I would take a picture of them so I was able to see a class picture and know their names like that. So cramming, practice as if you were taking a test. That's what I would recommend to you to do. All right, Sharon asks, how do you build a relationship with parents that you never seen or talked to? This is my 3rd year teaching this student, and I have never seen the parents.
Thank you, Sharon. Unfortunately, not all parents will be available to come to the school and meet you in person, but that doesn't mean that you can't have a relationship with them that, starts on the phone or comes through email or something of that nature. As a support team member here at EPI, there are a lot of teachers that I help in the classroom that I never see face to face, that I speak to on the phone. And we develop, great relationships, working relationships. So what I would say is, make sure that you're regularly contacting these parents as much as you can. And when you speak with them, try to maintain that positive attitude with them, tell them good things about their students. And then you can steer the conversation from there. But yeah, don't think that just because you do not see them in person that you can't have a good relationship with them. Thank you for your question. All right, everyone, that's all the questions we have time for today. If we didn't get to your question live on the air, we'll have an EPI support team member reach out to you as soon as possible. Please join us back here next week, August 31st at 4 p.m. Eastern, for the next episode of Launch Your Classroom. We'll be discussing how to create effective classroom rules with your students, as well as how to choose appropriate consequences. To get the most out of next week's episode, EPI program members should read Chapter 4 in their Launch Your Classroom handbook. Remember, to stay up to date on all the professional development opportunities that EPI offers, please enter your email address in the field below. We'll see you next time.